All I want for Christmas
Good
is a
morning, my brother.
conversation with my good friend Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the Elder Council. It is the day before Christmas. Kind of doesn't matter what holiday you celebrate, but to celebrate the winter solstice, which is where it
Yes.
started. We're right in the middle of the polar plunge. Can't wait to hear what meteorologists on the weather station come up with new names to say, you know what? It's so cold
It's
outside,
coming.
you should just stay home.
Yeah. And for us, staying home was sort of mandatory, but we were also keeping horses alive during that. So it's been a big deal. It dropped down to 18 below.
Seriously cold, and I
Seriously
don't want
cold.
to lose my audience, so I'm not going to tell you what the weather is here in Santa Barbara, because that's just going to annoy people, and I don't want to do that. I want to build relationships, not have people come gut in for me.
Well,
However,
actually, if you say how wonderful it is, you're going to probably have a lot of visitors.
well, we have a spare bedroom, and just you know how to get in touch with us, and we love visitors. So my friend, as we come to the end of the year, one of the things that we seem to do a lot is we do like year in review, like it's
Hmm.
the time
Hmm.
for lists. You know, any list you can think of, right? You know, the top movies, the top songs, the top this, the top that, the top all that kind of stuff. And we've already talked about just recently doing a an after action review and
Hmm.
looking at the year in repose to say, you know, what worked, what went well, what went wrong, what needs work, right? What went well, make a list. What went wrong, make a list. What needs work, make a list. Our military listeners know this very well. We've adopted it from them, and find that this time of year it's really good to sit down by yourself or with your partner, whether it's your business partner, your relationship partner, your kids. Sit down with your kids and do that. So just want to put another plug for that. One of the things that comes out of that work is what I'd love to talk about today.
Sounds great.
So when a new piece of paper, this will be the action at the end of this, but I want to ask the question, what are you not going to do in 2023?
Mm. So when you say that, my insides sort of go, oh.
Hmm.
So would it be appropriate? I think it's a great question. Would it be appropriate for you to talk just a minute about why you're asking that question? What's the importance of asking that
Sure.
question to ourselves?
Is it fair to say that at some point, most of us feel overwhelmed? Yeah, it is. I think everyone now
Hmm.
is, you know, they're currently feeling overwhelmed, or times during the day or during the week they feel overwhelmed. I think especially post COVID, you know, it's life has changed in so many different ways, and we feel overwhelmed because like work has encroached on us 24/7 because we have Zoom and we're always connected, and we're just we're overwhelmed. So the reason I say, what are you not going to do? It's a it's an effective tool to battle overwhelm,
Mm. Okay.
right? So here's a really trivial example. We asked ourselves this question. We've been doing this for a while, probably 8 or 9 years ago. And we said, if we could, because we have someone who helps clean the house, right? Once a week comes in and does that stuff. But if that person also did the laundry, that would take 8 hours out of the week. We stopped doing the laundry. Now you don't
Mm.
probably don't think about that, but Kimberly did. She says, God, if I could stop doing the laundry, that would free up 8 hours that I could do other things, even if it's just downtime.
Right. Doing nothing.
Doing just downtime, white space, right? We call it block time around here. I just need a block of time to think about something or do nothing, just to recharge, right? We don't recharge enough. So there's an example of a concrete thing you could do to free up time. So that's just an example. And so let's just start there. So it's mostly, is there something you could do that's sucking up time that you could stop doing to get more out of? You have 160 hours in a week, right? I learned that lesson. I learned that lesson from a chef, because of course, if you do the math, it's probably, I'm probably wrong, but whatever 24 times 7 is, someone do the math
I think
for
it's
me.
168.
It could be 168. Yeah. So it's 168. So I'm whining to a chef back in the day. Chef, I worked my ass off. I worked 80 hours this week. And it was normal for chefs to work that. And he said, how many hours are in a week, Sylvester? I said, 168. He goes, so you're telling me you only worked half time? Shut up, get back to work. So you factor in, like I did the math. I did the math when I semi-retired a year ago, October. I said, okay, start with 168. How many am I going to sleep every day? How much am I going to do on meal prep? How am I going to do on chores? What am I going to do on writing? And I just did the math. And I found out I had, another 40 hours or 50 hours. Like, huh. So so I want to turn it into a monologue. So does that help answer the question for you?
Yeah, that helps answer the question a lot. The other thing I think about is, in doing those things, I think we don't just get overwhelmed. I think that there's things that we do that actually waste our time.
100%.
So one of the things that I would put out is your example about doing laundry or having laundry done. Clearly, doing laundry is not a waste of time. We need clean clothing.
Yep.
So there are some things that we do that they're not a waste of time, and we can figure out a way to delegate those things.
Yes.
Or shorten them, maybe in some way, get more efficient.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I see that happens is that people do things that just purely are a waste of time. And many times we don't even realize how much time we're spending on it. Like an example would be scrolling, and just endlessly scrolling on
social media and emails on the list.
Right. Sometimes it's watching TV shows. Sometimes it's actually doing things that at the end of that we think that we are doing something, but when you look back at it, that you're not. And then the other category that I really want to throw in here, because this has been an issue for me, is doing things that on the outside look pretty productive, but perhaps because of the dysfunctionality of whatever that is, it turns into a waste of time. And
example.
Yeah, let me give you an example. I've spoken on here before about that. I've been on the fire department actually 6 years up here. And recently, the politics inside the department, and actually outside of the department more than inside the department. For the most of the 6 years, I've been able, as being on the board or president of the board, to mitigate most of that craziness. And so that we could actually get something done. And the fire department up here, I do want to praise and support both the volunteers and the paid staff that respond to calls, because I have no issue with that, and they do a great job. But the outside messing of the politics and the triangulation and the dysfunction is a waste of time for me. And at some point I chose very recently to resign from the board. And I don't have much time left on my term anyway, but it was like, I just could not conscientiously, one, deal with the ethics of what was going on, but two, spend my time knowing that I was not going to get to a good solution.
So let's stay on time for a second, because saying no to unproductive meetings is number 4 on the list of think about the meetings. I'm talking to our listener. Think about the meetings you're in on a regular basis that are wasting your time, where you're not moving the ball, right? Whatever that is. There's 4 kinds of meetings. Meetings where they're informational meetings. We're going to sit in a room and someone's going to give us information. Get rid of those. Do email, post something, post link to something for people to read. Information meetings are over. Number 2 is a decision meeting. Those are good, but only the people who can make the decision should be in the meeting. And you might have a little bit of information at the beginning. Hey, I want to make sure everybody read what we're going to vote on. And now we're going to decide on a new product. We're going to decide on a new hire. We're going to decide on a new policy. That's a 10-minute meeting. Let's decide. Is there a little bit of debate? Let's debate it out. Boom, have a meeting. That's decision meeting. Don't need to be long. We book hours for those. Don't need to do that. Number 3 is a brainstorming meeting. Those are fun, but you want to say, hey, listen, I need you to read this, because then we're going to brainstorm on this for 15 minutes. We're going to give it a cap of 15 minutes. Then we're going to make a decision. Now I'm in a 20-minute meeting. And then the 4th is a no agenda meeting, which is what most of them feel like. Well, I don't have it. Well, we're going to, it's Monday. We always meet on Monday. Come on, done. Get rid of that. So if you're the leader of your organization, rethink meetings. That's number 4 in the schedule. And things to say no to is unproductive meetings. So that's what you had. And if you also feel like they're soul crushing, that's another reason.
Yeah, the soul crushing piece.
Right. So let me add.
Go ahead.
Finish. Stay there. Go
back around.
Go.
I actually want to speak to the informational meeting that you spoke about. So this is a yes and. The yes and part is that some people get information better by hearing it than reading it.
Fair enough.
But what makes those meetings for me a waste of time, and actually any of the 4 that you spoke about, are the tangents that people go on when in the middle of those meetings. So let's say the meeting, it's about X, Y, and Z.
I'm with you. That's a leadership. That's a leadership issue.
Right. And then somebody comes in and they either try and take over the meeting, or they go off on their own personal tangent to show you how smart they are.
Do you know what TED, in the TED conference, or early on, this is 30 years ago, someone asked Richard Saul Wurman, he's the founder of TED, why are there no questions allowed from the audience after the talk? So it's kind of to your point, someone has just posited something for 15 or 20 minutes. And now that stirred some ideas. He says, because people don't know how to ask good questions. B, they want to speechify and give an opinion because, to your point exactly, they want the rest of the room to see how smart they are.
Exactly. So let's talk about good questions for a minute. This is a bit of a tangent. What's a good question to you? Because I have my own perspective of a good question.
So I'm in the question business. That's my
Perfect.
job. My job is asking questions. So I could tell you, but I won't tell you how many books I have around me within my arm's reach about asking questions. It's part of being curious. So a good question will feed your curiosity. Da Vinci wrote about this in Curiositas. I said it wrong, but that's kind of what it means, is that. So I was also taught early in my question asking career, don't ask questions that have a yes or no answer, unless you're an attorney, I guess. But ask a question that has an open-ended answer. And the best question is less than 8 words.
Ooh. I'll have to think on that one. So let me add to that. From my perspective, there's 2 kinds of questions that make the most sense. One is to gain information.
Yep.
So if you give me 3 pieces of information and
Yeah.
I'm going, yeah, and this is a curiosity part, it's like to gain more information versus to give an opinion.
Information, clarification.
Right. And then the other one is, I don't fully understand X, Y, and Z. Please
Explain.
elaborate.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens in asking questions, and I actually teach this in therapy, is that questions make us think.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to know, so on a couple of different levels, sometimes we do need just X, Y, and Z information.
Right.
How do you get from here to there?
Yep.
If we are in a relational process with another person, questions don't help usually, because we relate from a somatic place versus a head place. Now, I might ask somebody, and this is a tangent, I know, but we're going to,
Or tangents on a existing tangent, just tangent police.
I can say to somebody, if, for instance, if they're crying, I can say, why are you sad? And that's going to make them think, why am I sad? I can also say, I see your tears.
Right.
And that drops somebody in. So,
yep.
So the reason I'm bringing this up is because if we're going to get rid of things that don't serve us anymore, which is what this time is
what
about.
Are we saying no to? Yeah.
And what are we saying no to? It's saying no to the kinds of questions that stop connection.
Right. Sloppy questions.
Yes. Good way to put it. Sloppy questions.
Would it surprise you? I know the answer to this, so I won't. It wouldn't surprise you to know that in improv, one of the white belt rules, one of the things we teach our white belts, is do not ask questions.
Perfect.
Do not ask questions. You know the answer, because 2 people walk into a scene, you know the person, you know what you want from the person. We've talked about this. I know what I want. I have a want. I have a need. I either love you or I hate you. I already know, so I don't have to ask silly questions. The audience doesn't care. So to your point, why are you crying? He said, well, I can see her crying. Yeah, I knew he was going to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or I see you're crying. Didn't go well with the boss. Like you can turn, and we do this in real time when we're coaching. They'll say, make a statement as a question and go, say that, make that a statement because you know the answer. We have this thing called
Yes.
act as if I know the answer. And I love how you always bring that back to that brings us into our body. I love how our worlds collide. So let's keep going on this, because when I was thinking about this topic for the day, what are we going to say no to? So say no to the laziness and not asking good questions, because sometimes you want to ask a good question and not speechify, but see if you can turn the question into a statement. So that's a skill.
That's a huge
that's a skill. That's a skill. And for me as an interviewer, my improv coach says, Mark, I know it's hard for you because your day is spent pulling information, being Sherlockian, pulling information out of people to be able to have a compelling show, right? So moving on, here's another question to ask, which is along the same lines. When do you cut bait?
Ooh, this is great because that's just exactly what I was thinking of. I was going to say it in a slightly different way, but so when do you cut bait?
So someone who might not be tuned into the fishing analogy, cutting bait is when imagine I'm fishing and I either I'm stuck on something and in my brain is no, I've caught a whale.
I know there's a whale on
there's
the end
a
of
whale
this.
there, but sometimes you figure no,
gigantic stick.
I'm not going to be able to get this in the boat. So I have to cut bait. So it's like, when do you give up on the thing you're doing to move on? That's kind of what we're talking about in a larger sense. Or I'm fishing. There's no fish here. Oh, I cut bait. Like I gotta move on. Gotta go find a fish. And I've used this exact term when someone comes to me and they're in a relationship that they shouldn't be in. And it's like, you're never going to land that fish. That fish is not getting in the boat with you, wherever you are. Or how many times are you going to come to me super upset about your life choices? When are you going to cut bait? So I think there's maybe somebody listening right now who's in a relationship and is trying to cut bait. So the question for you, sir, is, what's the coaching around the resolve it takes to cut when you've invested time and money and energy and all of these things into something that is not serving you? And we're just going to use relationships for a minute, but any of these tasks fit into that definition.
And I think that if I'm understanding your question right, it's when do we know when we need to do that? Is that what you're asking?
I think it's a two-parter. I think I'm going to guess the answer is your body knows before your head does. And then once your head does and you've made the decision, how do you find the resolve to stop doing the thing?
To do what you're doing.
Well,
actually, I think that you're correct. Our bodies most often know. We know in our guts. It's like, ugh, I just can't keep going with this. And most people don't trust their bodies enough to believe that. So let me give a couple other pieces of information. Every relationship has a contract.
Okay.
Doesn't matter what it is.
Yep.
You and I have a contract It's pretty unspoken, but some of it we've actually spoken about. Most of it we know through conversations. Kimberly and I have a contract. You and your Kimberly have a contract. And by contract, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about those
Understood.
things.
You have an agreement.
Yeah, there's a whole set of agreements. If people don't know what the agreements are or the contracts are in the relationship, then chances are they're not really having a relationship. That's number one. So for those listeners out there that are going, well, I've been with so-and-so for X amount of time, and I have no idea what our agreements are and no idea what our contracts are, then the chances of them being in a relationship are pretty low, even though they might be living with that person. So that's one piece. It's like, what's the clarity between two people? Two is each person in that relationship willing to meet and match those agreements, and most of the time even go beyond?
Okay.
Because again, since you and I are the two talking here, it's like people who see these shows go, yeah, those guys know each other and they, jam off each other and et cetera, et cetera. What people don't know is the rest of the iceberg, so to speak. What's under the surface? All of the interactions we've had, all of the discussions we've had, all of the personal support and sharing that we've had with each other, all of those things. And so it's not just the contract that we're going to meet here Saturday mornings. It's what other aspects of there are there of the contract, and two, will each person in that relationship be willing to go above and beyond the contract just because it's the right thing to do? And
it makes me think of those people who abide by the letter of the law. So the contract says there are rules of engagement. How are we going to behave? We talked about meetings earlier. I was taught very early in my professional career that you explicitly talk about the rules of engagement for that meeting. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. Like this is a all in meeting, and you're expected to participate. The rule is you have to participate. Right. So that would be right. So going above and beyond is really thoughtfully participating and being a part, being constructive rather than destructive to the conversation, and all of that. And the same with, if the rule is you're the one who makes sure the house is locked up and there's water out for the animals and you've cleaned the litter box. I'm going through my list of rules, and Perfect. The garage is locked. Then that's and in our case that's spoken. Hey, you take care of that stuff, and the other person in the relationship can count on that you're going to do those things. Or I'm not going to be a needy, whiny prick and not trust you.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Right.
So yes, and that too, what you're speaking to is, I have no doubt that Kimberly does not have to ask you to check the water, to feed the cat, to lock the doors. She just knows that it's going to happen.
Right.
And there are certain things that she does that you just know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't even have to think twice about it.
Yeah.
And if I may go back to the contracts, what sets people up to waste time in relationships is not knowing what the contract is.
Yeah.
So two things in getting rid of something. One is people, and this is gonna sound a little radical, but if you're in a relationship where you don't know what the contract is, one of two things need to happen. Either that relationship needs to end, or you need to lead in setting up a contract. There's oftentimes what will happen is once somebody says, "Oh, here's I want to know what kind of structure, what kind of contract we're having in the relationship." Many times those relationships that don't have contracts will end by asking for a contract.
So the action is to remove ambiguity
Yes.
or address ambiguity. I like alliteration. So address ambiguity. There's a few more things I want to run by you, Doc.
Please. Go for it.
The number one thing that we can stop doing that will have a positive effect on our life is procrastinating.
Love it.
We waste a lot of time procrastinating, where if we just did the damn thing, it'd be done. And because we have these open loops in our head. Oh, I got to do that thing. I got to do that thing. No, not right now. I have resistance. That's a whole nother show to talk about. But there's particularly good TED Talks on battling procrastination. But if you're a procrastinator, you already know you are. When would now be a good time to stop doing that?
Say that again. I say it again, because
it's not an original line. I'll give attribution.
Fair enough.
But
it's like what you just said is so profound and so subtle all at the same time. When would now
be a good time to stop doing that?
Exactly. May I riff on this a little bit?
Yeah, that's NLP, by the way, from Tony Robbins.
Oh, cool. Two things. So I'm in the middle of an Aikido class, and the exercise is being surrounded by 6 to 8 other students playing the role of attackers.
Okay.
And so you're looking around.
It's a dynamic circle, right?
It's a dynamic circle.
Yep.
And I do not know who's going to do what.
Yep.
Or when they're going to do it, or how.
I've been in that circle many, many times. I know the circle well. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Two things. One is, don't wait to be attacked.
Correct.
Ever. Whether that's in this kind of a circle, or whether that's into a meeting, or whether that's in a relationship.
That's a metaphor for life. Yeah.
Exactly. Metaphor for life. And the other thing is, do something.
Yes.
It's like your technique may not be perfect. I can tell you for a fact it's probably won't be perfect, because when you're doing a slowed down technique with a learning partner, it's like, they're coming in and they're punching this fast.
Yep.
And you get a chance to go, oh, my feet. Oh,
yep. All that. Yeah. All that.
And you even get a chance to go, oh, the wrong foot forward, but do something. And that's the biggest thing around where we waste time, is we just need to do something.
So that's procrastinating.
That's a procrastinating.
So if that's and I think I started working on this 4 years ago, relatively recently in my life. But it's just like, if I think of it, just do it. Just right. Do it. And Mike Kimberly would say, you don't need to do that now. I said, I need to do it now for my own thing. Just let me do the thing. and just be done. And she's probably, it could be later, but if I'm thinking about it, just do it. Just do it.
There's
Right.
no rule in the world that says you have to do it immediately.
Right. The second one is to think about stop doing is stop believing the myth that you're a multitasker.
Talk more about that.
When you're doing,
that's
trying to do two things at the same time, you're not doing either one of them with you're doing what Clay Shirky called continuous partial attention.
CPA.
It's a thing. Stop doing that. Focus on one thing. Do it. Stop believing, oh, I can multitask. I can do a bunch of, no, you can't. Not well. It's a story you're telling yourself. Just stop doing that. Honestly, the people who can do that well, honestly, are women, because they had the crying baby and they had to feed and had to keep the fire going and make sure the saber-toothed tiger wasn't going to get them. And where's their man? And they have a reptilian ability to keep 8 things going at the same time, and they can do it. As men, you might be able to have a couple of things lit, but actually to try to do 2 things at the same time, people can challenge me, but I would suggest number 2 on the list is multitasking. I think the third thing that someone can do, and you can do right after the show, is turn off notifications on your phone.
Oh God. Yes.
It's a simple one. Just turn them off. Go into settings, general notifications off. And then you could say, I really need to get messages from people that are in my A list. Those I need to get that. So then start turning things on intentionally, but turn off notifications, because you're going to, if you have one of these devices, it's going to be interrupting you all day long. Don't do that. Turn that shit off. We talked about meetings. Another thing that you can say no to is stop doing tasks that could be easily automated. Right. So if you spend a lot of time scheduling, let's say you're in a business where, people need your time, and that's part of what you do is people book time with you. And you know who you are, whoever's listening. There's a million tools out there. A great one's called Calendly, and you can put it up there and just have a link. If you want to have a meeting with me, go to my Calendly, and it shows my open stuff in the calendar. Get scheduling. Stop doing that. It's a waste of time, huge waste of time. Kimberly, she runs a business where at any given time, there's 30 people in her orbit who need some time during the week to script review, go over a talk, whatever that thing is. She had hired an assistant because there's too many moving parts to be able to, so get an assistant. If your business is doing well to the point to where you can get some help, get some damn help. I know you recently got an assistant, right? That was a big one.
I did. And so this is the other piece to add is, well, one, my assistant has been fantastic. And 2, there's a learning curve.
Yes.
On how to effectively use her time and her ability.
Yeah.
And I haven't fully learned that yet. I'm in that process.
Yeah. There's a white belt. There's you're a white belt in delegating.
That'd be true.
Yeah. Just look at it that way. And because we both know about belt levels, right? We're pretty good at that.
Might be a no belt in delegating at this.
That's right. There is a pre-white belt stage where you understand, oh, there's this thing called delegation. Oh, really? What is that, Sensei?
Yeah.
On road to white belt you are.
Thank you. Sensei.
Yeah, but there's that clearly, and And why don't I leave us with this last thing on the list? So I did make a list ahead of time: procrastinating, multitasking, notifications, meetings, doing things can be automated. And the last one is task management, which is delegating things. We started the show delegating the laundry, but there's a lot of stuff that you can delegate to free yourself up to do the more important work that you're on the planet to do. What are you here to do? What are you building? Like, why are you here? You're not here to do a bunch of the stuff that's wasting the time, the valuable time you have here on the planet. And I would just encourage people to do this today. Make a list, and then stick to that. Like make an agreement, make a contract with yourself that says, hey, you want to be reach your higher goal, better self, get more out of. A friend of mine says, well, so what you're saying is you want to get more juice out of your own oranges. Yeah, that's what I want. I want more juice. I want more out of my 168 hours.
Yeah. And may I add one thing to this, or do we need to wrap up? Do we have time? Everything you said, I'm like going through my head going click, 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 click. In fact, when we get off, I'm going to be taking a look at all of those things. One of the things that people give up is self-care.
Yeah.
And and this is kind of be a double negative. Stop. What we need to give up is the process of giving up self-care.
Yeah.
We think that if I give up self-care, I will get more done. The reality is just the opposite.
Exactly. 100%.
So as you were talking, I was going, oh, all of those things on many levels, if you look at it, are self-care.
There are 3 self-care tips that are easy to do and they're free. Would you like to hear them?
Please, and then we can wrap up with that. Those are gifts to ourselves.
Sleep. It's free. Get sleep. You're not a hero. No one cares that you were up till 2 a.m. working. No one cares. Sleep. Body needs it. Sleep. Second, breathe. Take a second. There's all kinds of reasons. We could do a whole show on breathing. There are breathing experts. Breathing is free. Cost you a second. Breathe.
Exactly.
Third, drink water.
Totally.
I'm too busy to drink water.
Really?
3 free things. And I'm going to give you a bonus, which is, yeah, exactly, an audit. Right here within arm's reach. Here's a bonus that we learned from a guy named Chet Holmes, passed away. But the time we did spend with him was incredibly valuable. And one of the things he had us do was piece of paper, tape it to your desk, and for one whole day, from the time you sit down at your desk to the time you leave, write down every single thing you did and how much time you spent doing it. Do an audit, time audit. And if you don't work at a desk or you don't do anything, just keep a piece of paper in your pocket. When you start something, write it down. When you end, do the next thing. It's a pain in the ass to do it. Granted, pain in the ass. At the end of the day, it will shock you. It will 100% shock you. And that might be a great way to start saying, well, What should I stop doing?
Exactly. Well done.
My
Thank you,
friend,
sir.
I love you so much. I want you to have a great holiday, and let's let our brothers go and get
Yeah.
on. They have work to do now, right?
They do. So love you too, brother. Our relationship has been one of the gems of my year. Thank you.
Agreed.